Riverside.
Tim, did you have a good holiday?
Yeah, listen, there's a lot of time on the road to be contemplating the future of your football team's success when you're in the middle of Midwest America hitting the streets.
Well, Tim, we like it's wild because obviously a lot of people don't realize we usually record. By the way, last episode, thank you to all of our fans. It is our most listened to episode by far of any of our episodes. And so I think we have to thank Alabama fans. So shout out those in Tuscaloosa. We appreciate all the clicks, all the likes, all that stuff. But we usually do a midweek episode. Obviously, the holidays, you were traveling. Tim, it was the whole Twitter timeline and TikTok was absolutely on fire the whole time you were gone. And everyone thinks and again, everyone thinks they're talking to you, and it's my favorite part.
It's the best. It's the
It
best because, like, everybody was, I'm sure, they were like trying to get away from their family and not engage with anything else. So their crazy cousins or uncles, and so they were just on the social media timeline, just firing off comments. Meanwhile, the perfect Lord's angel that I am was just like embracing family and the whole thing, and driving across the country, all that sort of stuff. And it was blissful because I was not listening to any of the haters out there. The haters were just yelling at themselves about it. And meanwhile, I'm just, all right, game week. Can't wait. Let's go. You're not even paying one iota of attention to the Alabama haters out there that were probably just commenting to distract themselves. And I was just blissfully unaware, as I am still right now. Like, I've been focused on nothing but the Hoosiers. I don't care anything about the SEC. I don't care about the rest of the Big Ten Conference. Like, this is just Hoosiers, Hoosiers, Hoosiers for me.
I know I added to the agenda today to talk about the bowl games and like, hey, let's talk about the results. You know, it'd be a good fun to take a little jab at the ACC, the SEC, the Big Ten's undefeated. Tim's like, I haven't watched a
Yeah,
single.
not a single thing. All I saw was that a Pop-Tart had to get, like, resuscitated yesterday.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that my knowledge is limited to not even the Pop-Tart bowl game. I don't know even who won, but the Pop-Tart lifestyle. That's the few things I saw this morning as I was drinking my coffee, and hopefully those Pop-Tarts pull through.
Well, you are listening to the Kirkwood and Dunn show. My name is, why'd I call it show? It's a podcast. It's a podcast, Kirkwood and Dunn podcast. My name is Trent.
And I'm Tim.
And it's been a week since we've had a show, so that's probably why I'm a little rusty here. I missed Tim. Tim and I barely talked through the whole break. Please, if you are listening, following, watching, like and subscribe. YouTube down below. Spotify video. We're on Spotify video. Spotify subscriptions are lagging behind, according to Spotify, of our other channels. And then obviously Apple Podcasts is where you can find us, but we're also on TikTok and Instagram. Go look at all the comments on all those things. They're pretty entertaining. Tim, I don't think people like I was listening to Crimson Cast, by the way. Shout out Crimson Cast. They're driving. Galen Clavio and Alex Paul are driving across America to head to Pasadena, doing some great content. Go check that out. We're very excited about that. But I was listening to his show before he left this morning. We're recording on Sunday morning. And he was talking about all the Bama noise is coming from X and is coming from, I will add, TikTok, of like Indiana fans getting mad that Alabama fans are being disrespectful. And it's not a good reflection of the Alabama fan base of what we are seeing on X and on TikTok. And I will disagree with Galen. Is that
Thank you. Me too.
what you're hearing in like rational conversation about the game is actually the minority of Alabama fans. Would you agree with that?
Listen, I am a data analyst by trade. I don't know the breakdown, and honestly, I don't care about the breakdown. Like, I I hope maybe Gail and Alex will be listening to Kirkwood and Dunn in the middle of Oklahoma or New Mexico
They
right
won't be.
now.
They're way too civilized to listen
Listen,
to our show.
it's a 30-plus-hour drive. You
That's
gotta
true.
at some point, there's only so much content to go through, and they'll dabble in
This is
this
like
type
me
of a
over
show.
break without some of my favorite shows. I was watching AI recreations of, colonial Boston, during the Revolutionary
Okay.
War. So, like, that's how deep we were getting on the YouTube,
Yeah,
during break. Great
but
point, great point.
but I like, duh. Yes, Twitter conversations are maybe not representative of the entire populace. Like, when I went to the Big Ten championship game against Ohio State and Indiana, yeah, the Ohio State fans were a little bit more muted next to me. I'm not. I'm holding that same energy the entire time. But like, I I get it. Like, sure, there it's maybe not the best representation of how everybody feels across the entire fan base for either team. But you know what? This is for frankly for our podcast and what we do on Twitter or TikTok or anything else. Yeah, I'm going to embellish. I'm going to talk my shit. I'm going to stand on my business and tell Alabama fans and Paul Feinbaum and anybody else that wants to listen, like, yeah, you guys suck. You're going to lose by 20. Ty Simpson's overrated. Couldn't beat out Jalen Milrow. That they haven't played anybody in the SEC. The SEC is mid. Like, these are my takes. I'm going to stand by them. And then everybody's going to, like, sure, but they've been bookmarking away, I'm sure, to come back on January 2nd. And you know what's going to happen on January 2nd if the Hoosiers win? I'm going to come right back to them. So this is the takes game. We play the takes game. I'm all ready to just like fill in the takes with everything that's the most extreme option because why do I want to live any other way? Who wants to sit here and listen to a podcast or a show or a take online that's just like, I think it's going to be a close competitive game that might result within a one score and there might be a one play that makes a difference. All right, fine. Thank you. That's like watching paint dry. So this is not the podcast for that. Shout out to those guys, but we're gonna, and me in particular, we're gonna hold down on our most extreme takes possible.
Well, there are great podcasts out there, and I've listened to a
Yes, go
couple
listen to
of a
them.
week. Yeah, they're really, really good. I like that's where, I just I think people figure out pretty quickly, like, the algorithm on Twitter and TikTok sends stuff to whoever you're playing because that's just like it's really good. It's a good algorithm. If we are playing Oregon or Texas Tech next week, we will start seeing Texas Tech and Oregon stuff in our timeline, and then people will care to
Yeah,
respond. Our Indiana stuff will go into their timeline, and so like the whole narrative of like where were these guys 2 years ago? Where were like the whole thing? Same thing Ohio State said, and it's like you just didn't care about us 2 years ago. Like, we were there.
right.
You could go search at ST McGee. Sure, we started the podcast in the middle of November of last year, right before Alabama lost to Oklahoma, only scored 3 points in Norman, missed the playoffs. Right before that time, just helping Alabama
Yeah,
fans frame it for them. Um, and we did that because of a lot of different circumstances. But sure, we did it also because Indiana was winning and people actually wanted to listen to Indiana football content. So we like put out a podcast. It's not offensive to me that we only started a year ago, even though it's the offensive. You can go look at, Kobe Fleming, who's on Twitter, one of our loyal followers. He was talking about, he's like, man, I've been listening, I've been following since 2014, 2013. I was at the Akron overtime game. Like, we were all here. You just
yeah,
didn't care. And I'm not mad at you for not caring. It's okay. Like, I'm not like, we were here and I'm offended. No, it's like, okay, we were really bad. We were bad
right.
with your defensive coordinator. Just want to point that
Yeah.
out.
Ooh, oh, ooh. Insert Ashton Kutcher from That 70s Show's GIF. Burn. Got him. Yeah. Like, who cares? Would anybody right now start a Boston College football podcast? No, that's stupid. They suck. Congratulations, Alabama fans, and their attempt to learning how to read first read the history of college football going back 100 years. Congratulations. We've all established that fact. Anyway, now looking at the 2025 season and the 2025 rosters, how are things going to go? How do we think that's going to happen? And that's where you and I come in because we listen, you can go out and listen to the Pro Football Focus, podcast or like there's great deep analytical stuff that you can read on not only this game but all college football. I think what we're providing for folks is a different understanding that melds in between, sure, what the data says, but also if I ran into an Alabama fan on New Year's Day at a bar, do you know what I would tell them? That their team sucks, that the glory days are over, and it's time to enjoy being 9-3 maybe every year, and wondering why you can't raise any money to pay your team or pay your coaches. Hmm, sucks to be you. Not my problem. Rich program, Alabama poverty program. That's where we're going in the future.
So there's been a lot of myths that are being pumped online that is the same. It's so funny. It's the same as what Ohio State came at us. And it's so weird. Like the argument against the Ohio State fans coming at us in Indiana or in Alabama fans coming at us was like I never once on a podcast or on Twitter didn't acknowledge that like Ohio State's really good. Like they're really good.
Right.
Like they're a really good team. Like I know like Ohio State fans like acted like we were saying that, but we were just saying like we can beat you and you don't think we can win and we can
Right.
win. Like that's what we were saying. And Alabama, I'm kind of opposite. I think Alabama can win if Indiana doesn't play well. I mean, it's like it's kind of the opposite of what Ohio State was like kind of saying. It's like, I think we can win if Indiana plays really well against Ohio State and Ohio State doesn't bring their A+ game. I think we can win against or I think we can lose against Alabama if we don't play our A+
Right.
game and
Right.
Alabama does. Like I
Right.
think it's
I think,
possible.
yeah, listen, credit to us here. I think we appropriately said that we were underdogs against Ohio State and that it would take a really strong game, but that maybe we could still win, right? That that there was a possibility that even if Ohio State played well, that we could still play even better and win that game. What you and I are going to describe here about our matchup with Alabama is ultimately that the way Alabama maybe wins this game, Indiana has to not play well. If Indiana plays well, there's not a world where Alabama wins this game because the deficiencies on Alabama are pretty pronounced. And the extremely sort of like well-rounded style of play that Indiana comes with, the level of execution that Indiana comes with to these games this season, it prevents them from losing. Because guess what? I don't know if you've looked up recently, Alabama, in your search for records and win losses. Indiana hasn't lost this season. 0 times, 0 losses. In fact, when 60 minutes have been played, Indiana is the winner, victorious. So we come with a level of completeness to every single game that is going to make sure that we're competitive. Like, this is not an opportunity for Alabama to blow us out with like a talent disparity thing. Like, that's the low brain Alabama fan type of stuff where they're just looking at 24/7 recruit rankings. But meanwhile, those 24/7, 5-star recruits went into Tallahassee, Florida in August and got their asses kicked. So, like, why are you talking about talent? Because your talent hasn't really done a whole lot.
Okay, so I pulled 4 myths that are kind of floating around Twitter. And again, some of them was what Ohio State was saying. It's there. So, but I've seen some on ESPN. Shocker. Hand up if you're shocked that ESPN is
Yeah.
pumping like myths just for the SEC to look better. Okay, so one is Mendoza's stats in big games. So they pulled. I don't have it up. Sorry, bad podcasting.
It's
But
bad.
you can go find it. That
I
Mendoza
think it's
in the
something like 28 touchdowns to 5 touchdowns in these
yes.
bad teams versus good games.
Yeah, 4 interceptions, I think, in the good games and stuff like that. Like, Alabama or, like, they were posting that on, ESPN, and they were showing it, and they put in there the games they were pulling from, and it was all teams ranked higher than Alabama in the S&P Plus. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, sure. Yeah, he's not done well against Iowa, Oregon, Ohio State, or he hasn't done as good,
Right.
but they're all ranked higher. And the other one that is usually included in there is the Penn State game. And guess what? I hate to break it to Alabama fans, but they're like 2 spots below Alabama in every metric. Like, this is someone called them the best 6-6 team in college football, and people were laughing at this person, and I probably wouldn't pull that out because that's ridiculous. But they in S&P Plus, they're top 20. They're like a good team. They just lost games. And I'm not here to argue that Mendoza is scoring the same amount that he did against Kennesaw State as he is against Ohio State. But I will point
Sure.
out, top 30 S&P Plus team Illinois is never included in there, even though they were ranked number 9 in the country. And if you did, all those metrics are skewed.
Right.
So you're a data guy. How fun is it to absolutely cherry pick whatever narrative you want to do? And then Alabama fans are so dumb, they don't keep that narrative or find it themselves. They screenshot it and then they keep sharing it as in a response
Yes.
to things.
It's incredibly hilarious to watch Alabama fans every week attempt to tie their shoe, and then they stand up and then they fumble right over themselves every single week. It's the most hilarious thing. And I'll give you this is the best example out of all this sort of narrative stuff between Alabama fans and Indiana fans. Okay. Last year, or sort of in the offseason, ESPN, in its attempt to make good on its $1 billion investment into broadcasting the SEC, created its own stat to measure teams and their success. It was called strength of record. A little bit different than strength of schedule. Strength of schedule is just merely, did you play good teams or not? Which has some usefulness. But then they were like, we should dig a little bit deeper, right? Because they were trying to pump up the Jalen Milroe 9-3 Alabama team last year and then say, well, but beating, it's not just about playing a bad team or a good team. It's like, how well did you do, right? Because the SEC should be starting to hang banners on quality losses. That's their best argument they've ever had. And so the strength of record measurement says, hey, let's take a look at every team's schedule and say, what would an average team do against this schedule, right? Because that's what they're going to pump out there. If Mendoza had to play at South Carolina, Sandstorm would have him fucked up. Like, they try to pump that out there. And who is the number one team in strength of record? The Indiana Hoosiers, baby. Which basically means that nobody would have done as well against the Indiana schedule as well as Indiana did. And they would have done better against the Alabama schedule than what Alabama did. Like, that's what the point of this entire stat is. It's looking at all the sort of like team efficiencies, offense, defense, special teams, road, home, like the whole thing, and say, like, how well would have each team done with that sort of respective schedule? And that's the point, Alabama fans, is that if you would have played Illinois at home in week 4, you wouldn't have won by 50 fucking points because you know what you did play? A bum ass Wisconsin team, and you kind of beat them, but like not by a lot. And when you go on the road, who'd you lose to? Like, who did you play? How well did you win? Like, you go play a conference championship game against Georgia, you get fucking dog walked, right? What happens when Indiana plays a conference championship game? They fucking win. Like, that's the difference here. Alabama fans don't know how to read their own stats to make their own arguments.
One of my favorite myths that keeps coming out is the out talent Indiana, like the number of 5 stars. Like, it's pointed out multiple times on Twitter that Alabama has more 4 or 5 stars than Ohio State does in going into this game. Does that mean Kalen DeBoer should be fired?
Right. Why aren't they undefeated?
Why aren't they undefeated? Why aren't they winning?
Right.
Why aren't they the 2019 LSU or the 2001 Miami? Like, if they have so much talent, then that means you have terrible coaches. That is the only equation.
Exactly.
If you are saying that talent equates to dominance, then Kalen DeBoer, Kane Womack, and Ryan Grubb, and Nick Sheridan, because I want to throw him
should
in
lead
there
to
because he's a
success.
bum, should be fired. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
What did that
I don't
talent
understand
do
that.
at home against Oklahoma? What was that talent doing until Diego Pavia gifted them 2 fucking interceptions in the red zone when you were gonna lose to Vanderbilt at home. What was that talent doing? Did that talent cause the Oklahoma punter last week to just like oopsie daisy drop his punt kick and then gift you like what are we talking about with this talent? Your talent has not played up to its actual level. So something is wrong here. You're trying to build some narrative of some magical thing where this talent will somehow suddenly win out against Indiana's talent. You know what Indiana's talent has done? It's beaten all the other talent it's come up against this season.
Yeah, I think this would be what would you say? In terms of recruiting rankings, this would be an interesting thing to pull if you're listening to this to people who are smarter and do more research than we do. 5 to 6 times, Indiana's got on the field with somebody and been outranked in terms of star recruiting rankings this season,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Right,
Like,
like,
I think you probably throw Maryland in there. I think you probably throw Michigan State in there. Like,
yep,
I yeah,
Iowa for sure,
Iowa.
Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State. Like, this is the recruiting rankings are like valuable, but like, folks, this is red alert for Alabama fans. I know you've kind of missed this, and you're thinking about a different era of college football, but recruiting rankings are not designed to predict college football success. Recruiting rankings are designed to predict NFL outcomes. Like, that is what it is. And it's the same thing for basketball. College basketball recruit rankings are not designed to predict March Madness success. It's about who's going to make it to be a professional level. So that's a good thing generally, but it's not there to design to predict that success. So what you're looking at is like the wrong way to even think about how college football teams win games. Because what college football teams do to win games, in case you haven't realized, is play really sound football. And they force college athletes to make mistakes a lot. And that's what Indiana has done the best. That's why we're undefeated. That's why we're the number 1 seed. That's why we're the home team, Alabama. I don't know if you realize this, but your team makes a lot of mistakes. They make them repeatedly. And that's how you've gotten to this point. I don't the narrative around college football recruiting rankings is the wrong way to look at college football. And it's been the wrong way for the past few years. And Kurt Cignetti's proven it. Indiana has proven it. Indiana is the new model. You actually develop players to win games. You don't develop players to just put them in the NFL. That's a different way of college football that doesn't exist anymore.
We're gonna have a section here that says things that actually make you nervous, and, like, I'm gonna bring up some of the narrative here that is part of that discussion, but you're exactly right. Like, the whole recruiting leads to national championships is gone, and you I love how you're like, "The recruiting rankings tell you what NFL success." The recruiting rankings tell me how valuable someone's gonna be in the portal for NIL money when they transfer out after a year and a half. Like,
Right.
that's high school recruiting rankings mean, uh, nothing. I agree. I will say here, you and I, of all the Indiana fandom universe, will acknowledge, like, the blue chip ratio is a real thing, and it's
Sure.
better to have good players that are highly scouted and seen as good than it is to have 0 stars that you, pull up. But guess
Right.
what? You can still win with the 0 stars that you develop and pull up, and Indiana is a team that's actually proving that, and but I'm sure Curt Cignetti, like, if he had a chance to take a 5-star wide receiver that had his makeup that he wants in a player, he's gonna take the 5-star wide receiver. I don't think Curt Cignetti is gonna say no to that because he wants to
Right.
prove something. I think there are coaches out there like Iowa over the last few years that would take the 0 stars to prove something. I don't think Cignetti would. They are in too many conversations with top end guys. All right, historical significance that somehow that Alabama, who's been to multiple Rose Bowls and have won multiple playoff games, that gives them an edge in this game. That is a common myth that's being thrown about. And Tim, I'm working on a tweet, and I'm gonna spoil it here. I'll get it out here.
Tweet preview,
that
new segment.
the
Tweet
tweet
preview from
preview.
Kirkwood and Dunn.
I don't know. There's been actually 2 tweets. There's one that's in my draft folder that I just don't think I can send. It would just be too inflammatory. And then one that I will share here. That basically every time I hear Indiana or Alabama fans talk about their history of their team and like how because we're the second losingest program, even though like they all think we're the losingest program, that is insane. We're not.
Nope.
We're the
Nope.
Northwestern.
Yeah. Don't even try to
Lowly
come at us with it.
Northwestern.
Yeah.
Yeah, terrible. But Alabama doing that is they didn't integrate as a team until 1971. And I wanna I am going to do a tweet, and again, preview of that every time an Alabama fan jumps into my mentions to talk about history, and then it's gonna be a clip of Alabama governor presidential candidate George Wallace going segregation now and segregation forever because Bear Bryant and the SEC and Alabama stacked wins, only playing each other because there was about 20 years there that they refused to play anyone with a non-white person on their roster.
Yeah. Yeah. Fun time. This, hey, just, and for our listeners to know, listen, this, that's at ST McGee when you want to reply to this, at ST McGee. That same style sort of a fact of Alabama, raking up wins against maybe not the best possible competition also applies to the University of Michigan. So when University of Michigan was playing Detroit Metro Boys Club 3 times a year, and they talk about having the most wins ever, save a similar sort of fact in your arsenal to reply against them. This is an insane thing to do, to be thinking about past success to predict future success. That works when you're thinking about like sometimes like the stock market or something, or like other things. But college football, even in its like best possible case, you're talking about a rolling 4-year period of players coming in and out. Like these are seasons that are unique to themselves. The teams are not the same. The helmets are the same sometimes, right? The brand names are the same. But like trying to predict those future things, like to go back to something like recruiting rankings or whatever else, or the historical significance, right? Alabama guys, in up until last week, Indiana was the team that had played in a playoff game more recently than Alabama fans, right? Like, so why does Ty Simpson's experience of sitting on the bench and watching Jalen Milroe throw duds out there for the last 4 years mean that he's going to play well on January 1st? How does that factor in? Please illuminate that for me. Just Jam Miller sitting at home watching Mark Ingram or Derrick Henry or TJ Yeldon be a successful running back at Alabama. Guess what that's led to? It's led to Jam Miller averaging 1.2 yards a carry or something and fumbling at the goal line. Like, what are we talking about with this historical precedence? Like, your historical precedence means nothing to predicting what's going to happen on January 1st. This is why this is another false flag argument. It has no bearing on it other than what is it like to go look at our team's Wikipedia page? Go have fun. You're going to be reading it all off season.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, it was the same thing with Ohio State. Like, yeah, you guys are really good programs. And yeah, Indiana has been dog shit. Like,
Yeah.
okay. Like, it is there. And honestly, Alabama fans, again, just dummies. Like, all they should be talking about is like, hey, Kalen DeBoer has been a really good coach. And he took a team to the championship, a Washington team that kind of came out of nowhere. Like, they were good. Like, they were expected to be good, but they got to the national title game. Um, uh, and so we believe our coach, who just won a playoff game, can beat is a good playoff postseason coach. That's fair. That's good. That's actually history that does actually factor in here. Is that you can look at coaching records and be like, oh, there it's at. Signetti in Power 5 playoff or Power 4 playoffs, 0-1. Okay.
Right.
Like, I don't have
It's
enough sample size to tell you if Kurt Signetti's good in the playoffs or not. Like,
that's
I
my
can't
favorite
argue back
person.
with you.
Listen, this is my favorite part about the entire discourse we've had with Alabama fans. It's like, there's actually decent sound arguments they could be making about why Alabama might win or they should not be like 7-point underdogs, that this is a much closer game. And they just refuse to take any of them. They're just like, they're like a
Yes.
cat to a laser point, and they're like, ooh, but what about the time where we dominated the 2010s? Okay, cool. Hey, is Tua and Jalen Hurts showing up to play quarterback for you on January 1st? Nope. Is Mark Ingram showing up to run the ball? Nope. Is uh Hightower coming to play linebacker? Nope. Like, okay, who's your offensive coordinator? It's not Lane Kiffin. I know that much. Like, who's your defensive coordinator? It's not like all like
Kirby Smart.
your guys. Alabama, you've fallen off the mountaintop. You can
Yeah.
still see it. That's the problem. And you're hitting the bottom on your way down.
All right. Well, let's move on to talk about the thing that they will ignore constantly. And that's the stats and the advanced metrics that are out there that they it's amazing how much politics and sports fandom mirror each other. Like
Ooh.
when you have facts in front of your face and you just explain away those facts or completely ignore those facts, and it's nothing it's on display so much in this argument of the past 7 days, because it is the whole narrative of like, well, you didn't have to play Georgia's defense and you didn't have to play Oklahoma's defense. Literally every metric in the country says
Yeah.
that Indiana's defense is better than both those. Like
Right.
like
Every single one.
every single
Every
one.
single one that also like takes into account for like quality of like the strength of schedule, the efficiencies, turnover luck. Every one of those metrics also says that Indiana's defense is way better than any defense in the SEC. Like better than Oklahoma, better than Georgia, better than all these other teams. So what do you think is going to happen, Alabama?
Yeah, I mean they're just an absolute refusal to accept any of that stuff. And then you can be like, "Oh, we'll do the baseball ERA argument." We're 13-0. In every game that you want to bring up, like Iowa, Penn State, you struggle with those places.
We won the
We
game.
won. And it was a road game. It wasn't even at home. No, we didn't even play a hard team at home all year, except
No.
Illinois at the time was the one that we thought was going to be like there. And they're still top 30, and that's great. And we beat them by 50 plus points.
Right.
It's one of those things that it is like yelling at a wall. It is there. So let's be fair. Okay. Let's talk about things that actually make you nervous going this game. Now, we have a lot of new listeners. We appreciate you listening. Yes, you're going to get historical things like doing quotes from George Wallace, governor of Alabama and presidential candidate on this show. But one of the things that we do on Tuesday, this week we're recording on Tuesday because of when the game is, because usually it's a Thursday release. We're going to do our game preview, and we're going to talk about how does Indiana lose the game. So that is coming. We'll give our predictions and all that fun stuff. But I want to know, like, as of 12/28, the day before I leave for Pasadena, what, Tim, makes you nervous about this game?
I think if another name for this segment could also be sort of like devil's advocate, or what if I switched off my sweater right now from an Indiana to an Alabama? Like, what would actually be the sort of like arguments or things that I would be thinking about to go from that thing? I've been It's been my favorite thing to make jokes about Ty Simpson losing 3 straight quarterback battles to Jalen Milroe, who is a fullback tight end playing quarterback. It's hilarious that he could not do it. And Nick Saban was like, no, thanks. Like, we'll try to run a wishbone T offense to win national titles. Nick Saban, the best coach in college football history, was like,
Kalen
we're
DeBoer,
good on tight.
offensive mind, also
Right.
chose Jalen Moore over
Jalen
Tyson.
Milroe last year. Yeah, yeah.
Jalen Milroe.
Yeah. But this is now Ty Simpson's 13th start, 14th start will be the Rose Bowl. Fernando Mendoza has like 30 under his belt, right? What was Fernando Mendoza in his 14th start at Cal, right? So if you're actually just looking at quarterback play and like potentially a trajectory that, all right, fine, he rode the bench, whatever, but like he's gotten into games now, he's started games, and he's gotten better every single week. He's gotten more experience, you know. So he's so early in his playing time career, even though he's been there for 4 years, that like the version of Ty Simpson we may see on January 1st is is a is a new ceiling every single time, right? And that's how you would wipe away the Florida State loss. Like it's the guy's first career start. It's on the road. Like, yep, it was bad and whatever, but like that's how you sort of like you just sort of dish it away. And that there may be holes on the Alabama team, but what Kalen DeBoer and Ty Simpson are doing is they are now on a trajectory for a place that Indiana hasn't gone to yet. And that maybe the trajectory or the ceiling of the Indiana offense as a whole is we've seen the top. We maybe haven't seen the best of the Alabama offense. Like that's potentially the thing that sort of like broadly speaking worries me, or what I think should be the Alabama argument in their favor is you maybe haven't seen the best of us. So all the things about how this season is going or whatever else, not necessarily valid yet. We still think there's a higher ceiling for us to get to, and that may show itself on January 1st.
So I think the Ty Simpson argument is interesting. And obviously we have been, last podcast, there was a lot of discussion that you and I were taking like Ty Simpson's not very good. And I still stand by Ty Simpson isn't good with one arm tied behind his back, like I said in the last podcast, because that is how the Alabama's offense is
Has been.
designed. Like, I don't know what's wrong with them, but that's how it's been designed. And Indiana being one of the best defenses against the run doesn't give me a lot of hope that Alabama's going to figure that out. So, like, that's where I think Ty Simpson isn't as good because of that. Like, he might be good in a balanced offense. I don't know if he's that good because of that. So, I think it's interesting for you to pinpoint him as the guy that's there because I would say, Tim, we going in the Ohio State game, one of the things that you and I were very worried about was uh Julian Sayin
Yeah.
picking apart the Indiana zone defense.
Right.
Didn't happen. Like it didn't happen. It was partly pressure. Honestly, the how Ohio State had positive offense in that game was a couple big plays of Jeremiah Smith, one in
Sure.
particular I can think of, and then running the ball. Like late in the
Yeah.
game in the third and fourth quarter when Indiana's defense was wearing down, they ran the ball pretty well. That's the Bo Jackson like did pretty well.
Yeah.
We've not seen that from Alabama all season, so I don't know where that like can come from. So all I'm saying is I think Ty Simpson is a good Kalen DeBoer quarterback. But if he was Michael Penix, I'd be way more worried, if that makes sense.
Interesting.
Because
What does make you worry though? Because it's clearly not Ty Simpson.
it's not Ty Simpson. It is how Indiana's offense sometimes looks against athletic defenses. And so I'm gonna say this, and it's the same argument that Indiana or Ohio State, Alabama, eventually Oregon, eventually Ohio State again, because I think that's how the record it's gonna go. But like how they're gonna bring up is like that Penn State game. Penn State's defense is still really good. I know you didn't watch the bowl game, the Pinstripe Bowl, but like they've had transferred outs and like people sitting in that game, and they still like were really athletic, really good. That Jim Knowles defense causes issues for Mike Shanahan. Iowa's not super athletic, but they're super physical. And Indiana sometimes struggled with that at times in that game. At Ohio State, obviously, Caden Curry just abused the right side of our defensive line and Fernando
Yeah.
Mendoza, i.e., the first play of the game. And we moved the ball in one drive there. One significant drive is what we did. it does make me nervous that Alabama does have athletes. Now, do I think it's a Kane Wommack defense, and we've seen that defense and how they play against good efficient offenses? Yeah, that makes me feel a lot better, and I could sleep at night. But if it was any other defensive coordinator, I would be going in this game like, "Oh, defense has to hold them to 10, 14, 21." Like,
Yeah,
they're not scoring. Now, I think it's the other side, but it's the athleticism, and that's where I said, like, the recruiting rankings come into play in the fact that, like, those guys have been dudes and athletes since they were sophomores in high school. They've been going to camps in the South. Their ranking pumped up
yep.
because of that whole thing. And with getting LT Overton back, uh, I'm not worried about Fernando getting sacked. He's going to get sacked. We know that.
Sure.
But it is one of those things that a athletic defense always makes me a little bit nervous going into a game. Your response to that? You want to make me feel better?
I think that's a fair thing to be worried about. You know, I don't want to spoil all my takes for the next episode on how I think this game will go, but it is a problem area at times. Uh, I think I think the Indiana offense can absolutely dominate inferior opponents. But this is, a college football game has, 9 possessions each, maybe, right? And if you just sort of immediately assume, well, 3 to 4 of those are punts, things didn't work, there's a penalty or something, so you punt away. You're talking about 4 to 5 possessions for each team. And what do they make of those 4 to 5 possessions? How many of those turn into touchdowns? How many of those turn into field goals? How many of those are a turnover or 2? Like, I have been gloating that my median outcome in my analytical assessment of this game is Hoosiers win by 20. But there is a world where this is within that gambling spread number of 7 points or so, where all it takes is 1 or 2 things to go the other way. I think it would be because of, like, a Ty Simpson type of play, but I think you're right to point out the other side of the ball of, like, "Oh, the Indian offense maybe doesn't do as much as it potentially could have, or should have," or some things turn into field goals when they could have been touchdowns. This is what we said about the Ohio State game. The Ohio State game was a very, very close 13-10 game. So there is a world where this comes down to those sorts of things, and a few things break one way, and that's how this turns into, a poor day for the Hoosiers.
All right. We're seeing here, I don't know what's doing in Indianapolis, but up here in Ann Arbor is raining and sleeting. I was very excited to head out to California for dry weather, perfect temperature. And then the weather prediction comes out and it's there. We're going to be battling rain most of the week, but especially during the game. As a fan, that
That sucks.
sucks. Yeah, that sucks.
You
I was
just
like,
spent a
"Oh,
lot of
man."
money.
Yes, exactly. Luckily, I'm staying in a place that has, covering, but the as Indiana, uh, this is a good thing, right? Like, what's a team that's shown the most ability to make mistakes and turn over the ball and wet weather can do that? That's Alabama. What
Yeah,
team what does well in rain games? Run games.
yeah.
Alabama doesn't have one. So, like, I I'm gonna miss the sunset, but if it gets me a Hoosier win, I'm not mad about it.
Yeah, listen, I will not complain about any way Indiana wins a game. If Indiana wins this game, I will be dancing on the graves of everybody from Alabama, you know, till sun up to sundown. But the rain is a less than ideal. It's to me, it's still probably like the 10th most influential factor in terms of matchups or whatever else. It's more of a bummer of like, this is the Rose Bowl. This is the game that even even if your team doesn't play in it, like college football fans are really watching this every year. It's the best part of New Year's Day to watch the sunset go down as the game switches from day to night. And it sounds like it's going to be kind of one of the 8 days a year that it rains in Southern California. So that's going to be a real bummer. But I do think that it could maybe influence some drop passes, some slips, which could lead to some explosive plays when normal on most times that play would have been stopped or something else, and it leads to a swing in the game.
All right, Tim. We we did watch the Rose Bowl, Utah, Ohio State. Electric game. Jackson Smith and Jigba goes off for 700 yards, it seemed like, in that game. Other coach on the other sideline, Kyle Whittingham, Utah. He is now the coach at University of Michigan. Is it just me? Am I the only one that feels like Michigan, like, got a get out jail free card and escaped by upgrading their coaching staff after the Sharon Moore debacle, or what your is Kyle Whittingham a little too old to be taking over a program like Michigan?
I think Michigan got really lucky. You and I have been on this train for a long time, but like Sherrone Moore was a bad coach, like not good. And the only reason he had that job was because a weird thing also happened a couple years ago when Jim Harbaugh decided to up and leave to avoid NCAA penalties and then go take an NFL job. And so he was just sort of gifted the keys because he was already in the car for Michigan football. Similar thing happens here, and they get I would really love to dig into Utah message boards on the transition of Kyle Whittingham out of there, who, while Urban Meyer maybe had a better, like, overall team at Utah, but Kyle Whittingham for a decade plus really put a strong contender out there for Utah. So he's extremely good coach. And I think will absolutely bring a level of stability to Michigan in when they've been in a little bit of chaos zone for the last couple of years. NCAA violations, investigations, whatever. There's still going to be more investigations going on. If I'm Ward Manuel, I'm not exactly still sleeping well as the Michigan athletic director each night. But this is a lifeboat that got sent to Ann Arbor, and that does mean that Michigan's going to be a little bit harder to, I think, beat over the coming years. He coaches a very sound style of football, um, but he's still probably not the long term answer. I think we all hope that your college football coach will be there for a decade, 2 decades. You have this incredible run of dominance, but that's probably not going to be Kyle Whittingham. But what it does do is give them a floor for the next 5 years when they get everything in order. Because really, ultimately, what will happen is I'll put my money down that Ward Manuel is not the athletic director in 2030. Just going to call my shot out there. I think they are also changing university presidents over. And we've seen from an Indiana side what really strong leadership means for a football program, from the president to the athletic director to the coach. When all those leadership positions are sort of rowing in the same direction, that creates a real strong trend line for you. You know where you're going, you know how you're allocating resources, everything else. It's gonna be a little bit chaotic still, I think, from a leadership perspective at Michigan, but there won't be a bottoming out of, like, a 3-9 season for them over the next couple of years. I think he brings them a nice solid floor.
I'll be interested to see how many players transfer out. Like, I can only imagine, like, players that maybe try to stick around, listen to the speech of, like, those who stay will be champions, and then they go to Kyle Whittingham's first practice, and the night and day difference of that practice versus Sharon Moore's practice, and they're like, "I'm out." Like,
Yeah.
"Oh, we're actually gonna, like, play football and actually be physical rather than put on blue collar jackets and say that we're physical. Uh-oh." Like, how does Bryce Underwood take that level of coaching that, like, I'm very interested to see that. I do think it's a good hire because I think it's a bridge hire, and it cleanses you of the Harbaugh infection. Sometimes an infection can be good. It produces a national championship, but, like,
Yeah.
it diseased you, and it, like, eventually it caught up with you with Sharon Moore, and what happened there. So I think it is a good cleansing thing, and Kyle Whittingham, you know, obviously, for those of you who don't know, he graduated from BYU, like, he's a very religious man, and we know about the Mormon faith and, like, their restrictions, and, like, Andy Reid is a Chiefs fan, like, no alcohol, no, like, all I think he's, like, the opposite of, like, that that regime on some level. Like, it's just is like he's just the moral upstanding citizen that he is. or at least reports to be. We never really,
Sure.
really know these things, but that reports to be. I think it's just good for the University of Michigan for them to just be on their high horse because they love to be on their high
Yeah.
horse. All right, Tim, let's talk about programming. So after this, we're not going to put it in this episode because I know people are tuning in to talk about Indiana, Alabama, Big Ten stuff. Tim and I are going to record some of our predictions for the bowl games. And we'll put that out separately as we get close. And when I say bowl games, so other playoff games, we'll put that out separately as we get closer. So we're excited about that. So stay tuned for that. The other thing is on Tuesday from my hotel room. I will be recording with Tim our actual game preview so that you have New Year's Eve and all day New Year's Day to watch that and get caught up on our predictions and yell at us for whatever reason. I'm sure that will be the case. But to find all those things, you need to like and subscribe. So follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube at Kirkwood and Dunn. And please like, subscribe, follow, share, all those fun things because it really does help us out. And it's been an exciting month of the growth of the show. And we're really appreciative of that. You can follow Tim at TB Hoosiers and you can follow me at ST McGee. We will have all of our tweets that are in our draft sent out at some point, I'm sure. So we'll see you next time. Go Hoosiers.